Eatonville is one of the few black towns still standing according to the historic Black Towns and Settlement Alliance. Today, Eatonville is a community of around 2,500 people with the determination to only survive, but also to strive and going forward. Eatonville is a small community, it's a beautiful place, and now today it has the threatening of growth, which is a good thing. But I think the community should be involved in all the participation of growth and what's going to take place in their community. It's important because they've been there for a long time, since the 1800s, and they should have some type of participation of the growth of what's going to take place in their community. No question about that. Good evening. Welcome to the interesting program of the International Grapevine. This is your host, Wallingford Lee. Tonight on the International Grapevine, we want to take the opportunity to talk about a small town, but a beautiful town by the name of Eatonville. It's a small town out in the area of Orlando, and we are pleased today to have on our program the mayor of the town. We want to take this opportunity so our viewing audience can know what Eatonville is and what it's all about. Mrs. Gardner, welcome to our program.
Thank you.
We wanted to take this opportunity to see if you could tell us a little bit about the history of Eatonville and a small story about it, because we want to center a good portion of the interview about a property that is up for sale. But we want to give our viewing audience an history a little bit about the background of this town, how it got started, and what does it mean for the community.
So the town of Eatonville, first of all, it is the oldest Black incorporated municipality in the nation. And it originally was a part of a city in Maitland, Florida. So even our zip code is 32751. That is the zip code for Maitland. How Eatonville became in existence is the fact that at one point it was a part of Maitland, but then you had landowners that were willing to sell to Blacks. And that is how Mr. Lawrence then sold land to Black owners, and then they were able to start owning their own land. When they were able to start owning their own land, then they decided, hey, we can have our own town. And so Joe Clark and like 29 persons got together, but only 27 on the record. And they got together and they said, we want to incorporate. We want to have our own charter. And so they did just that. And when they became incorporated and became the first Black incorporated municipality, they then said, hey, come on, you can come here. And so at that time, all the freedmen that heard about the town founded a place where they could also go, own land, have their families settle. So one of our town's motto is Eatonville, the town that freedom built. And that's where that comes from, because the freedmen found this as a place that they could settle with their families, own land, and be sustainable.
I would imagine that goes all the way back to the early 1800s, if my memory serves me right. And more important, it must have been a dream of most brothers and sisters to own their own land and their own stuff like that. Was it hard for them to have to buy that land, or was it just assigned to them?
Initially, back it was incorporated in 1887. So all the events would have been prior to that. It had to have been difficult because you can't buy land unless someone's going to sell it to you. And one of the problems is that they could not find anyone that would sell land to Black people. So when Mr. Lawrence said he would, some people speculate that one of the reasons that the yes finally came was because if all of the African Americans stayed within the town, within the city of Maitland, they then also became a part of the political system and those were votes. So that could have affected who ran the government for Maitland. So it made sense then that you sell land to African Americans so that they could settle in the area that's now the boundaries for the town of Eatonville versus them staying a part of the bigger region and affecting the political system. That's speculation. However, what we do know is that Mr. Lawrence did sell land. Land was purchased. And then part of a larger piece that you're going to speak about was 342 acres that was deeded to the Hungerford Trust, and it was in trust for the town. That land was given um, partly by the Hungerford families and other families that were willing to donate land for the sake of the education of the Negro children.
Very, very interesting indeed. When I look at it and went into it a little bit, I know it had to be very, very difficult. We're talking about the 1800s. We're talking about how the South was at that time. It must have been a very difficult process for everyone involved in this matter. And a lot of kudos have to go to our brothers and sisters who started Eatonville out there. A lot of credit. And talking about the 1800s, those that knows the American history have to know that, wow, that must have been a very, very difficult thing for everyone involved. We know also that, if we go back into a little bit into history, that we know that Zora Neely Hurston used to live out there. She's one of the most great writers that we knew about in Harlem, New York, because I lived in New York for over 50 something years. What was it like having her as one of the main people from that town in terms of history, and what did it mean to the town?
Um, so Miss Hurston did live here part of her life. Now, what does it mean in regards to the town? Truly, because her name became so well known and synonymous to the town, it definitely shed a lot of light on our town and gave us a lot of attention. But I also want to say that she's the biggest name that people know, but she's not the only name. We do have, other names of persons that have come out of Eatonville as well. Like Deacon Jones and Ha Ha Clinton Dix, a more recent name. So we do have other persons that came out of this town, but Zora started it. And through our PEC, our Preserve Eatonville Community Organization, they made that name, and they help people make the connection between Zora and the town of Eatonville through her books. I must give Miss N.Y. Theory a lot of credit for making that happen as well. So excited to know that we are connected to such a prolific writer as Zora Neale Hurston, but also want people to know that we have a great town that has been the home to several historic figures.
I couldn't agree with you more. When you think about Deacon Jones, great football player, outstanding, outstanding football player, no nonsense type of guy. And he came out of that town, and he made history in the National Football League like you would not believe. Well, one of the main things that we want to talk a little bit about is that great land where the school is. We know for a fact, going back to I think 2009, there were opportunities from certain investors who wanted to buy that land where the school was, and there was a couple of proposal on the table. I think for some reason or another, it never got done. But my understanding is that right now there are possibilities that that particular land where the school is right now could be sold. The school has a great history, obviously. It's a school where most black children attend to that school right now. And we want to talk a little bit with you the possibility of the sale, one, What does it mean for Eatonville? Does it affect the school? Will the buildings be knocked down and what have you? But let's go step by step. Does the residents, does the community like the idea that the possibility that the land could be sold?
So go back to the land itself. The school was raised probably in 2021. So the
Mhm.
school has already it was the high school that was raised. So that's been cleared in 2021. The elementary school that came is still there. It's still in existence toward
Okay.
the back end of the property. In regards to how the residents felt, a lot of the residents were really hurt that the school was not salvaged because that was the history was in that school. So that building affected many residents. But now that it's gone and it's under contract with the new developers, you have a mixture of emotions. For those persons that are for the development, they look forward to having something in that space that would allow for some entertainment. And this development would. They also look forward to having an infusion of cash for the town because we're a small town, so our ad valorem taxes are limited to the number of households. So that for those persons that are for it, those things appeal to them. For those persons that are not for the development, one of the main reasons, if earlier I said something about the PEC, and they're not a political body, but they do have desires. And their main desire is to use the property for what it was initially intended. And it was initially intended for the education of the Negro children. PEC would like to see more, they would like to see Orange County Public Schools return the land to the town. Even though the town necessarily did not own the land, they did, it was in trust for them through the Hungerford Trust. So PEC would like for the property to be returned to the town so that the town can then decide what to do with the land. And their desires would be to see more arts, museums, classrooms for the arts, um, and just an art alleyway. So that's what PEC would like. And then you have those in the middle. Those persons in the middle just simply want to know, what the options are and what does it mean on both sides.
Are there a possibility that the land could be returned back
It's
to
always a
PEC?
possibility, but it would in 1889 the first school was built. But along the way, the it was a boarding school, and so it was the only Negro school in the area. So families sent their kids there, and at that time it was flourishing. But then, when after a while, when you started dealing with um, desegregation, the Orange County Public Schools started giving a certain amount per pupil to the school, but that amount was nowhere near what was being given to the other schools. So even though Orange County Public Schools was giving their per pupil allowance to the school, the boarding school, it wasn't enough to keep the school up and running. And then when full-fledged desegregation, so what happened was when the school started running into financial problems, Orange County and the school said, hey, if you can build a school for the Negro children, Orange County said they could get that done. They could build a school for the Negro children. Then of course the Hungerford Trust is going to be all for that because that's what they always wanted was adequate schooling for their children. In the meantime, you had funding coming from the federal government. So after the deal was made that the trust will sell to Orange County, Orange County did pay the initial, what, 16,000 perhaps dollars to purchase. It was a tenth of what it was worth because they didn't take into consideration the structures on the land. Well, that deal was made, but right after the deal was made, then Orange County received funding to build a school. So then the trust stated, well, you no longer need our money. You can build the school anyway. Then, of course, by that time, it was too late. Orange County was not giving the land back. They had made the deal, even though the deal wasn't the greatest.
But I thought that maybe the funding would have helped or would have been enough to get the school built in the manner that the community wanted, but it was not enough funding.
When you say it was not enough funding, meaning the stipends that the boarding school was being given, or the money that the federal government gave,
The money that the federal government gave.
it definitely was enough. It would have been enough for them to build a school. They did not need our land. They could have went and purchased land to build a school in the area for Negro children. So
Okay.
they could have done it without our land.
Okay. But now with the proposition on the table to purchase the land, if that takes place, what will happen to the school?
That high school is already gone. It it had, so over, even though Orange County, the school was built, a school was built there, and over time it lost numbers and it eventually closed. So it's sat vacant for many years.
Wow. Wow.
So, and during that time, the town would use, say, the gym. It also had an area that and space they could use for special events. But other than that, the school did did come into disrepair. And so Orange County did decide it needed to be torn down. And so it was. And that was in 2021. I don't know what exact month, 2021.
Well, now I read in the papers that there's an offer on the table for the land for something like, if my memory serves me right, maybe about $40 million. But some part of the community is on board for it not to be sold, and some are on board for it to be sold. What does it mean for the community if the land get sold? What will they build there? And I want to come back into those that don't want it to be sold.
Okay, so what the current developers would like to be built there, part of it, if you look at the land development code, you have different percentages. So
Sure.
the largest percent would be housing.
Okay.
And there will also be space for commercial, some commercial frontage along our main street, which is called Kennedy Boulevard. And then it's a corner lot. So Kennedy Boulevard intersects with Wymore Road. So at that corner, you'd have more entertainment commercial, such as like I don't know if in our area it's something called Boxy Park. So Boxy Park is a place where you can go, you could dine, it has entertainment. You also have family, like volleyball. It's a neat little space. And then next to that, you had an eateries such as like an open market where persons can come get fresh vegetables, little boutiques, a space such as that. The problem areas in that for most persons that have a problem with it is the housing. When you're dealing with a community that has 2,000, about 2,300, a 2,300 population, and you have probably about 600 homes, then when you want to put in 300 or 400 single family houses or apartments, then that becomes a concern in regards to how the dynamics could shift. So I'm answering two things. For those persons that are for it, then that entertainment portion appeals to them. For those persons that are against it, The problem area would be the amount of housing associated with this development and how that could affect our just the cultural heritage of the town, possibly, and create a gentrification factor.
Well, it's interesting. Well, the growth might be good in one sense, but it would probably maybe be too populated, probably. And then the other side of
Absolutely.
it, you might have some business that might help the area in terms of jobs and what have you. Now, before you answer that, the people purchasing it are people in the community or people who are outside of the community? And what does all of that mean? Intricate, the growth, one side, then the other side, business that might help the area, but it could be overpopulated also.
So Eatonville, and then to the north of Eatonville, you have Maitland, but to the south of Eatonville, you have Winter Park. Winter Park is the 32789 area code. I
Right.
mean zip code. Apologies. So the developer is from Winter Park. One of the main developers is out of Winter Park, and Winter Park around this area is one of the richest small cities, in our area per square mile. Maitland is on its way there, and we're right in the middle. So when you talk about the change in population, we're not just talking about the ratio of new homes compared to the current number of homes in our community. You're also looking at the economical status shift. You know, so you could possibly have a city within the town, because if your new homes inside of this development will range around 600,000, anywhere
Wow.
400, 500, $600,000, and now you're in a community where the new homes getting built are selling at 345. That's a large difference. So, and that could be a concern. So it doesn't matter who buys the homes, but just the sheer value of those homes. The market value is going to cause gentrification, or could cause a gentrification factor to kick in quickly. Change is going to occur. No one's saying that, but this will cause change to occur rapidly, and that is a concern.
It should be a concern because obviously the prices will go through the roof, and the folks that live in that area might not be able to afford it. So when we're talking about gentrification, it has various impact to the community. We'll be right back on International Grapevine talking about Eatonville, the plus and the minuses, and what all of this means to the community. So we'll be right back talking to the mayor of Eatonville going forward. We'll be right back on International Grapevine. And we're back here in International Grapevine talking about this beautiful town of Eatonville, and we're pleased to have the mayor of Eatonville on the program, who has been so gracious enough to explain us the pros and the cons and what does it mean to the area, this type of growth, and of course the impact that it can have. And so we want to close out the next 3 or 4 minutes talking about what does it mean going forward. Um, Again, we're very pleased to have the mayor. Mayor, one of the questions that we have, obviously, the pros and the cons. Growth is good, but also growth sometimes can be dangerous. Growth is also good because it might mean a business for the community. Um, Let's talk a little bit about those that who are concerned and why they are concerned about the impact of this growth. Can you explain to us the side of those who are afraid of the growth and why they're afraid of it?
Well, as stated earlier, gentrification is the main concern for those that are concerned with growth. For the most part, the residents seem to want more more venues. They want more commercial venues, places where they can go, sit down for a cup of coffee. Some have even expressed they would like a grocery store, gas station, whether those would be best use of the land or not. That's not the issue. The issue is that those are some of the things that the residents would like to see on the land. That main concern is always the number of housing and the cost of those houses that will be coming in. In addition to the single family residence, there will also be apartments. Well, I don't know where you live. However, if the apartments are near upper end housing, then the cost of the apartments will also have upper end market prices. So even for those that won't be purchasing homes in the $500,000 $600,000 range, can they afford apartments that are also going to be in the upper ranges of 1,800, 19, $2,000 per month? So what is it in this development in regards to housing? What is it that our residents will be able to afford? And not just our residents, but those their generations that have moved out because they can't find a place to stay within the town, they still can't come back in the town because they would be priced out in most cases. Some won't, but a lot of them will.
Well, based on that note, I want to take this opportunity to say that I saw this happen a lot in Brooklyn, New York, in Bed-Stuy, in certain part of Flatbush, in New York, and it's something that the community should and must have a say somehow or another. It's great to have new growth, but what does it mean to them? Will they be able to participate? Will the 10% of that growth give people in that area the possibility to purchase, to live there, and what have you? Again, a great story about Eatonville, but definitely the community should have some say and some participation, no question about it. We want to take this opportunity also to tell you thank you so much for being so kind to come aboard on the grapevine and explain to us, because there are things in that we did not understand because we are new to the area and we understand the impact of it. We want to thank you so much for being our special guest, and we hope that you'll give us another opportunity to be more involved, to know more. This is a rich history, the one of Eatonville, and thank you so much for being our special guest, and we hope to have you back on the grapevine soon. No question about it.
You're welcome. Thank you for the invitation.
And to our viewing audience, we hope that this has been an interesting program, having the mayor explaining things to us that we were not aware of. And we hope to see you back again on the grapevine at the same time again. Thanks for viewing our program and continue following us all over the place in the grapevine. Good night.